bit me! Ouch, that spider bit me!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Deep Dive Zone, a Sonic the Hedgehog reread podcast for fans of all shapes and sizes. Here we are starting with Sonic the Hedgehog, Archie Comics, the main series, and today I am greeted by my co-hosts, Devin and Bruce.
Hello.
You just improv that shit off the bat. I didn't even ask you to do that.
That was very
Instead, you
impressive.
didn't remember the intro, so I just
I
did
meant
it
that
for
I
you.
didn't have the script that I usually read for it up, but you know what? We're gonna keep rolling. That's
Yeah,
great.
no, that was perfect.
Oh, you mean you're recording? Even better.
Yeah.
So, starting off in our first issue, let's see.
This first story, or actually, let's start with the cover to this issue because I think it's very funny.
Yeah, this one is pretty great. All the badniks attacking the freedom fighters with Robotnik there, looking great.
On a pure white background, there is no visual readability to any of this.
It reminds me of like a 80s cartoon intro where it's just like chaos on a solid color background.
Yeah, friggin' I don't know, what's the primordial like 80s cartoon, like G.I. Joe maybe? They definitely did a lot of that.
This isn't 80s, this is like 60s, I think. The 60s Batman cartoon intro.
Oh yeah, I like that one too.
Also, did Antoine have the sword at all in the miniseries?
I don't believe so. I think this is the first time we've seen him with a sword at all.
That's what I thought.
I love his bow-legged sword position. He looks so bad.
It looks like an attempt at a fencing position, but
It's not a fencing sword.
no, it isn't. He's using like a straight edge sword in a fencing position. I think that's just because he's French, and the French don't know how to fight.
Oof.
That's right. I will not stop with the French slander.
Oh.
Well, let's dive into our first story here. Meet Me at the Corner of Hedgehog and Vine. Written by Gallagher, drawn by Monic. That's basically going to be the MO for most of the early series. Robotnik unleashes the robotic Krudazoo plant upon the Great Forest, which threatens to ensnare the freedom fighters. Sonic and co. have to defeat the menace by waiting for it to rain.
Yeah, so that was one of my notes, but I guess we can just say that it's funny. This whole plot just resolves itself.
It's kind of funny when that happens, but it also, to me at least, is kind of a sign of lazy writing.
It's, well, I mean, if you're doing a gag plot, then I don't think it's a big deal to not have the
True.
heroes actually need to beat the villain. The
Right.
thing is that it's very, very weird to do this as a first issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, when it starts off with Robotnik beating up a pinata version of Sonic, which, by the way, I think this is the first time we see Robotnik's scepter with an R on it, which I think is great.
I believe so.
That's funny. Good thing from the
The
carrier man.
gear shift on his Eggmobile in like the very first comic kind of looks like it, but I think that one's literally just like an 8-ball.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about that one, but I wasn't sure if that was. I couldn't remember if that was in the miniseries or not.
But the funny thing is that Robotnik doesn't even come up with this plan. It's one of his badniks, and then he just takes credit for it anyway, which, I don't know, comes off as strange to me. Robotnik doesn't really have, Robotnik such Eggman, many strategist-like robots throughout the series, does he?
Right.
He has Deco and Boko do stuff for him sometimes, and that's about it, because Orbot and Cubot don't really participate. They're like commentators.
Okay, well, we'll have to get to Sonic here, because I never watched it in its entirety.
Alright, but you're mostly correct, yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of jarring for me.
Yeah, he's very Adventures of Sonic right now. And we've got like 3 whole pages of him just messing around in his office being rude to his robots, which I like that part.
Again, it's just more proof of how much fun it is to just watch Robotnik do things.
Yeah.
I like the fact that he has a very violent reaction to a plant, and that's, I don't know, I found that pretty funny.
He's so angry that any kind of vegetation exists that only once he learns that it's robotic is he like not freaked out by it.
Right.
So this really isn't the tone of the comic at all yet, but it does make me think a little deeper. Like, why does Robotnik have like this violent reaction to a plant? Like, is it not that he just wants to rule the world and he does that through roboticizing everything? Does he have like something against like the natural world or something?
And that's a fair question.
That is you're on the right track, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we get our usual freedom fighters in the base scene, and I want to highlight Monic's way of drawing Antoine is just awful.
He looks like he's always got a stick up his ass.
And frankly, he doesn't draw Sally great either. But
honestly, I don't even think he does Sonic all that great. Sonic always kind of. I don't know. To me, his art, his drawings of Sonic half the time look like his face is melting, or like taking like a piece of tape and is holding his nose up in front of his eyes.
Yeah. Okay. I kind of see what you're saying.
Unfortunately, I have read this so many times that I don't know. The art looks completely normal to me.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I might be letting nostalgia cloud my judgment a little bit, but anyway. So, yeah, no, they basically get introduced to the plant, and, well, we have this protracted scene of Antoine getting caught up in it, and them trying to figure out what the deal is. And I do like the shot where Rotor's like, oh, I'll just get it off with this chainsaw.
The savagery is, like, off the charts, even for Sonic, when he's like, Sonic the Hedgehog never deserts a friend in need, but since there's none around right now, I might as well help you.
And I feel like Antoine, so far at least, has been even more of the punching bag than he was in Sad AM.
Yeah, but they keep forgetting to have him do anything wrong, is the thing.
Yeah, he's never actually doing anything wrong. He's accidentally getting into situations that Sonic needs to save his ass from, and then Sonic acts like it's such a big deal and he fucked up somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Antoine is just punished for being alive.
Damn. I like the cell of Sally punching a fucking plant.
That part's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Something about that is
funny.
like, it's awesome.
But so they eventually learn through Tails just trying to water a bucket of cuttings, which that's not what you do with plant cuttings. But he waters it, and it turns out that the robot plants die in water.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
So where the hell
Almost
did these things come from?
It says it just like with the swap bot that walks in with it.
Oh, he
basically
says, "I call it Crudzo." You're right. He did invent
Right.
it. You're right.
It's like straight off the factory
research
line or
film.
whatever.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I fucked up. All right. I'm gonna cut all that out.
I mean, you don't need to
Okay.
cut that out.
Well, I want to. It looks embarrassing for me.
Cut out your embarrassing moments so you look good in front of everyone.
Listen, the entire point of the show is to prop up my own ego. I hope you understand
yeah,
that.
of
That's why I
course.
asked you to be here.
Yeah, you're a white guy starting a podcast. Of course it is.
Oh.
Anyways,
Anyway,
Robotnik, sees the spread of the crude zoo from afar through this ridiculous telescope, and I love the little note at the bottom that's like, see the great forest for 25 cents plus $50 tax.
you think Robotnik has to pay that tax?
Well,
I
no,
assume the
'cause
money
he's
goes
in
to him.
charge.
Well, it's like the government paying itself.
I'm picturing some like SWAT bot being like, please pay, sir, and he's like, no, and he just punches it and breaks it.
Fair enough.
I'm
That's pretty in
imagining him
character.
handing the money to a SWAT bot, and then the SWAT bot handing the money to another SWAT bot, and then another SWAT bot handing the money back to Robotnik.
That's also possible.
I
Anyway,
can also just see Robotnik putting it right back into his wallet.
so yeah, the plants die in water, and that's the whole thing. It rains, and that's it.
Rest in peace, robot plant.
Rest in peace,
1990
Borobot.
something. 1990 something to 1990
Oh, yeah.
something.
Poor innocent robot did nothing
That's
wrong.
true. Best character.
He will not be forgotten.
Yeah, and that's the end of the story.
Yep.
Not much here. It's mostly just puns and maybe a fourth wall break here and there.
And
A lot of these early comics are kind of just puns and fourth wall breaks.
that's pretty par for the course.
I do like the middle pages here, which encourage readers to cut up their comic books for quote-unquote bumper stickers.
That's an interesting one.
It's fun.
Oh no, it's fun, but it's like, assumingly the prime audience is supposed to be kids, so let's get the kid to cut up the comic book and then complain to their parents when they cut up the comic book.
Well, I'm pretty sure they only take up isolated pages, so you wouldn't be cutting any of the actual comic.
That would make sense from a logistics standpoint, but I don't want to give any company logistics credit.
I wonder how many kids actually did this, is my question, because that can't have been on the highest quality paper, so that probably rubbed off the car pretty quick.
I mean, I guess if you use packing tape or something and taped it to the car, it might have stuck around for a little bit, but if you just glued it.
What I mean, Either of those things would be bad for the paint. I guess regular bumper stickers are already bad for car paint. Whatever.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people don't really like putting them on the paint.
If I ever went for a Sonic bumper sticker, I'd definitely go for something more nuanced, just like an Eggman Empire logo.
Yeah, something simple.
Anyway, second story, which is called You Bet My Life. Gallagher and Monarch, same as usual. Sonic is sent on a mission to investigate Robotnik's Casino Night Zone, where he's attacked by an Orbinaut Badnik and trapped in a pinball machine.
Yeah, so there's a gag at the beginning of this where Sonic is called just to fold up a map. But there's this implication because he asks, oh, has this thing happened? Has this thing happened? And one of the things he lists is programming the VCR, and that apparently is worthy of him being called, but folding up a map is not.
Hey, programming that VCR is hard.
Apparently.
What shows are they trying to catch?
Maybe they're getting pirate VHSs. Oh wait, you don't
I
have to
feel like
report
Rotor
those.
would watch David Letterman.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, so they have this scene where they basically tell Sonic to go to Casino Night Zone, and Sonic tells the audience to play 6 acts of Sonic 2 before continuing.
Yeah, so as a kid, I was like, I want to do that. I'm like, oh wait, I don't have Sonic 2. And I'm like, well, there's like a casino zone in Sonic Advance. That's close enough, surely.
As for Casino Night Zone itself, it's not really Casino Night Zone. It's just kind of
a casino.
A casino, yeah.
I like the oil fountain in the front, though. That's a very nice detail by Robotnik.
I love that Robotnik built an entire casino to trap Sonic. That
seems right up his alley.
Totally Robotnik, yes.
Yeah, that's 100% up Robotnik's alley.
Also, part of the show, so Robotnik shows off the Orbinaut, which is interesting. It's kind of neat to see in these comics. You get to see like the original creation of really mundane badniks like the Orbinaut.
Anyway, they put him in the big pinball machine, and there's a lot of funny little details on this thing, like the spot on it that just electrocutes Sonic if he hits it.
Oh yeah, I mean this is meant to be like a torture machine, so
yeah. I'll say for Dave Monarch, I call his art messy, but if he needs to draw a character looking like they've been like completely roughed up and destroyed, he's good at that, because like the bottom shot of Sonic on the pinball machine, he looks like half dead.
Yeah, he's pretty fucked up.
So Sonic's quills, when he's getting out of the pinball machine, Sonic's quills are apparently so sharp that they can cut glass, which means that if anybody stands behind Sonic, that is immediately like a life-threatening scenario.
So what was the assumption? Just that it's because he's spinning so quick that he can normally cut through things, but he's not actually that sharp?
Well, I mean, if you swing a dull blade hard enough, it'll cut plenty of things.
Sure, okay.
Yeah, so Sonic runs out of the casino, and he plants a bomb in there, but you don't see him do it. And his dialogue where he's like playing with the bingo card, which is basically just him saying that he planted the bomb, but it's so like weirdly spaced out that it's like it makes it hard to read. So when he runs out of there and just the casino explodes, it almost feels like a surprise, because it's like, what just happened?
I like to imagine that's just something that Robotnik had planned, but then Sonic just set it off by himself.
Yeah. And we end off the story with Sonic getting back to base to help Antoine, who is struggling with a child safety cap. What pills is he taking?
Antidepressants.
You know what? I'll take it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the final 3 pages of the issue are just more like little gag strips.
Right, yeah, that's
pretty
regular
much
thing.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about it. Sonic gets an award. Sonic tests his fast speed. We got our second appearance of Trans Sonic, straight off the Game Banana mod page.
Oh yeah.
The number of transgender Sonic mods has skyrocketed since Forces came out, and I'm not really sure why. My guess is that people entered quarantine a different gender than they left it. But
you know what? I can actually see that being the case.
They got production values. They're getting voice actresses to do this stuff. They're modeling like new outfits and like customization options.
Well, that's Sonic fans for you.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it. And then the final page is Sonic just giving you a chili dog recipe.
Yeah, I was thinking about making this recipe, and then I realized I don't want to. I figured that was a good enough reason.
We had you endure Sonic G Fuel, so it'll happen someday.
And I'm already talking about getting the other two flavors of Sonic G Fuel.
Yeah, and that's Sonic number 1. So really, really weird first issue. It really feels like they didn't consider at all if some kids may be starting with this one instead of the miniseries.
Yeah, it really feels like they were just like, oh, miniseries exists. Let's just go off some random bullshit for the first full issue.
Well, did the miniseries? Yeah, I mean, I guess it got pretty quickly. Was it in the first issue that it explained things?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, so I guess that's a fair point.
All right, and for Sonic number 2, we start with a story called Triple Trouble, which is not an adaptation of Sonic Triple Trouble, but instead, Robotnik 6 new badniks Scratch, Grounder, and Coconuts on Sonic and Tails, who proceed to bully them into submission.
Oh boy, Scratch and Grounder are back.
I'm kind of this is maybe a weird reaction, but I'm like, oh wow, it's been a while. It's good to see Scratch and Grounder again. Like I'm almost remembering them fondly, even though I know they were terrible.
I'm glad that someone likes Scratch and Grounder. Actually, I know a lot of people like them.
We've been through a lot of just weird and obscure things between Adventures of Sonic and now. Like, Sonic Underground feels like a fever dream. So this is a spot of familiarity that's like, oh, that's like slightly comforting, even though they're still not good.
They're not nearly as bad in this, I would say, though.
Well, I mean, you don't, at least from what I've read so far, you don't really see them a whole lot.
Well, yeah, I think that's true for the most part, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're barely in the early comics, and then they, when they come back in the way, way later comics, it's, mostly just because of the novelty of bringing them back.
Right.
But there's not a lot here, frankly. It really is just like an Adventures of Sonic episode. They're just having slapstick gags with them.
Yeah.
I did take note. There's this really interesting frame where they decide to color Coconut's silhouette like shiny and clear, and I don't know, it looks interesting.
It does look interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I kind of dunk on Monic's art, and I will continue to, because it will still be messy and weird. But it's not that... I think that it suits the feel of something like Adventures of Sonic perfectly well, because that show was also messy and cartoony and made really weird, not bold necessarily, but at least distinctive artistic choices.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're defeated quickly, and that's...
Yeah.
I will say, because I read this first, I felt like I had more context for Grounder having arms that just turn to anything, because in this comic he says, oh yeah, my arms can turn to any machine. Okay. Also, let me just say that's ridiculously overpowered and underused. Yeah.
That's why he has to be very stupid to compensate.
Uh-huh.
It's the Okuyasu gambit. The gag page between these two stories is called In the Beginning, and it's a bunch of, fake concepts for what Sonic could have been, and they're all very stupid puns, but it's funny to see that when also knowing about the actual prototype Sonics and how weird some of those were.
Bro.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen, like, the fat guy Sonic that has, like, Bart Simpson hair and overalls.
Yeah, I've seen him. It's interesting.
I have not, actually.
It's, like, completely missing the appeal of why people liked Mario's design.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of missing appeals, our second story for this issue is Vertigo A Go-Go.
Oh,
Gallagher and Monic. Sonic is transported to a trippy alternate dimension and is harassed by its reality-warping denizens, Horizontal and Vertical.
Oh boy.
What is this?
I don't get this one. This is, it's clearly filler.
It's what happens when you run out of ideas in issue 2.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah, how is this in issue 2?
Yeah, there's no reason this should be in issue 2.
It literally has nothing to do with anything. Sonic just gets beat up in a whole bunch of different ways and then spit out, and he's like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, he's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, they're just...
Yeah.
I have nothing to say about this.
The only notable things about this is it does add a little bit of lore in that, like, there are multiple dimensions. That will be a recurring thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And it introduces these two characters, as they will become important again later.
Oh god, they do?
There is...
Kind of.
I get pissed off again, because there's another frame at the end where they say, want to see more of Al and Cal? Send us a letter in the mail. And it's like, why? Who is sending these letters?
So we could potentially blame the readers.
We could potentially blame the readers. I don't blame them. I think that they did it regardless of whatever letters they got.
I mean, probably.
Yeah, there is no proof that there were any letters, or maybe there was only like one among a bajillion. Like, oh look, it's one. I'll do it for this person because I wanted to already.
Exactly. It's like there's my proof that someone wanted this.
Well, and that's definitely true because I think that because Gallagher and Monarch were drawing and writing just like inventory stories basically like well into the 2000s after they left, and they only ran out of extra stories written by these guys in like 2007.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's, you know, it's entirely possible that they just came up with all these ideas, they just threw a dart on the board and just said, all right, we can just like crank this out, you know, so that we'll have something if a comic needs it. Because boy howdy are we going to get into the scheduling issues that came with getting these comics released on time.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
but
I would say overall, this story is very directionless.
Yeah, it just seems like an excuse to introduce these two and then be like, okay, they're going to abuse Sonic for 5 pages.
That was a joke. You didn't get my joke.
No, I got it. I just didn't know where to go with
I
it.
didn't acknowledge it. Okay, whatever.
I wanted to go somewhere with it, but I couldn't.
Their directionlessness inspires the entire rest of the issue to just be disconnected, one-page gags.
Actually, real quickly though, right before Sonic is just yeeted out of their dimension, there's a really very uncomfortable up-close cell of his eye, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Frankly, I don't think that there's much else to even go off of here. It's like, yeah, we could end off there, because what do we say about the rest of these pages? They could be any characters. They don't even need to be Sonic. You know, it's
True.
like you could
Yeah.
have, like, you have Sonic doing like house chores with his super speed, but you could also just do that with like Superman or anybody who's supposed to have any kind of superpowers. You could have
Right.
Spider-Man repair the walls with his webs or something. I don't know.
You just get some like almost slice of life stuff.
Yeah, but slice of life I think of as character building, and we don't have a lot of character building in these so far.
It's mostly just, as mentioned before, puns and fourth wall breaks.
Yeah.
Well, let's not waste any more time then. Let's do Sonic the Hedgehog number 3. The cover for this one, like, proudly proclaims that it's the best one on the rack. I'm gonna say probably not, but we start with the story, The Bomb Bugs Me. When the Freedom Fighters believe they have evidence that Robotnik has acquired nuclear weapons, Sonic, Sally, and Rotor infiltrate Robotropolis to disarm the Doctor.
So, is it only me that finds it weird that a Sonic comic is parodying, like, the Cold War?
The Cold War that was already over?
Well, so that would mean that all of the people that wrote and drew this probably grew up with a lot of Cold War stuff in the
I'm sure.
So
For reference,
that's probably
this
why.
came out in August of ’93.
Yeah, it seems a strange topic for these comics, especially with the tone they have right now.
Yeah, they have a very Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog tone, and then suddenly being like, oh, by the way, Robotnik has a fucking nuke.
I wouldn't say it takes itself too seriously after that. It's more like a Sonic Says about nukes, frankly.
Kind of.
Kind of. Yeah, I suppose that's not too far off.
It would make more sense, though, if this comic was in, like, the '80s.
Either way, spoilers, it's not actually a nuke.
No, it's not.
That's also true.
Yeah, no, the bomb just ends up being a bug bomb.
Right.
So yeah, we wasted half an issue on that, but it does have one of my favorite bits of the early stories, which is this whole weird gag of Robotnik and Rotor revealing themselves to be each other in disguise.
That was...
Thank you. That is one of my favorite jokes from the early comics.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I am in the gorilla suit. I thought I was doing a pretty good job. Yeah, so it was just Robotnik trying to get the mosquitoes out of his base or whatever. Or sorry, actually it says flying ants. Do ants fly?
Flying ants fly.
Flying ants do exist.
Okay. And then it's like, what, 3 pages of gags from here on out?
Something like that.
Yeah, so I don't get what's going on in the paper trail one where Sally is like furious about some bit of gossip. Is it that like people are saying they looked better before, or is it like a secret or something?
Yeah, it's so she's angry that people are just saying that she dyed her hair.
Well, I don't know how long time was before the first issue of the miniseries, but I assume it was there for anyone to see.
It's weird because Sonic says, "I thought she could take a joke," which implies that he made the newspaper, like the tabloid that shows, oh, she used to look different. But it's like everybody she knows knew what she looked like before. So, like, what's the joke here? And I guess if we take the framing that years from now the Knuckles comics will use to explain why she looked different, she's maybe thinking that it's exposing her as being someone vain for caring about her appearance enough to completely change it, and thus is upset about that when it's actually something more incidental.
Fuck if we know.
Yeah, I will have to put a pin in this one, and I will not judge this one-page comic fully until I have context from later on.
Right, I think that's fair.
Listen, this is important character building.
Totally.
I will say Sally spends more time sitting on a throne and harping about her princesshood in these comics, which is like the opposite of her personality in Sad AM.
Yeah, she's very much these comics write her more as
she's like a neurotic, like, nagging girlfriend kind of.
Yeah. I can see why some people don't seem to like Sally now.
Certainly not in the early stories. I think most of what people love her for is Sad AM and way later.
Then that's fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway, the other story in this issue is called Rabot Deployment.
Sonic I wonder who's going to be in this.
Sonic and Rotor save a girl named Bunny Rabo. Yes, it is canonically pronounced Rabo, if you can believe that. From a pack of SWAT bots mid-roboticization. While initially in shock, Bunny proves to be a strong ally in the fight against Robotnik. I'm saying that name thing, but that's a decades later retcon. I'm being a bit of a tool.
Fair enough, but
It's interesting to see the different philosophies sort of on how you introduce characters. It seems like the comics often like to explain things because it gives Bunny an origin during their introduction immediately, whereas Sad AM never got a chance to really get into that.
Well, yeah, Sad AM kind of jumps into things as they're happening.
Right.
Which isn't really a bad thing.
No, it's just contrasting.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I get that.
I want to bring attention to this little panel on page 2 in the top left where Sally scolds Sonic and Rotor for their bad puns, which it's like, that might be the most hypocritical line in this entire comic so far. Nobody has any right to scold anyone else for their puns in this series.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bunny is just like stealing carrots from who knows whose farm. They have a portable roboticizer in just like a pickup, just like a moving truck kind of, because it's not a semi.
No, it's almost like a garbage truck.
Yeah, they throw Bunny in the garbage, she gets stuck in there and she gets partially roboticized. And there is an important difference here, which is that in Sad AM, Bunny's both of her legs and her left arm are roboticized. Here, it's her left arm, but also the entire lower half of her body, which sounds very similar, but I regret to tell you that this is a plot-relevant distinction.
Of course it is.
Oh.
I will let you stew on what that means.
I think I already have an idea of what it means, but alright.
So they treat, they hold Bunny like she's been injured in all this, and she's clearly fatigued. Right. The moment they get back to the base, Bunny just jumps out of Rotor's arms and is suddenly, like, prancing around, lifting up furniture, demonstrating how cool and strong she is. And I like that, because I like Bunny. But it's like, well, are you injured or not?
Just briefly knocked out, and as soon as she was up, she was up.
Yeah, maybe part of that was the robot parts, Gotta use less energy to wake up your biological parts if part of you is robot.
Yeah, and she comes out swinging because she's just instantly like, all right, time to fight Robotnik, let's go.
I mean, can you blame her?
No, but I like the enthusiasm.
I mean, yeah, I can totally appreciate the enthusiasm.
And our monster of the week here is a big Burrowbot.
They're calling the Power Rangers.
Yeah, you gotta get the Megazord, the Bunny Zord.
I like how this Burrowbot, because it's flipped upside down, reveals that the Burrowbot's hats are actually removable. They're not just like part of the design. Robotnik had the attention to detail to make them actual hats which is great because I love that Robotnik makes these silly robots.
I forgot about that. That is really fun.
It's almost a bit of tonal dissonance with how nasty he treats them.
Oh yeah, no, the contrast is sharp, and I like it.
Yeah, I think that actually aligns better with Game Eggman, because I don't think Game Eggman really abuses his robots that much. He has care for their designs. He likes them.
They're, in fact, the closest thing he really has to followers.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why, as messy as it usually is, I like that all of the badniks in these comics have voices and sort of personalities.
Yes, I do like that. That's fun.
I think if they were gonna make a recurring comic series, it would have been better to make them almost like, independent characters in and of themselves, but then you couldn't really have as much of a robot army, so it's kind of a trade-off.
Yeah.
I like that, like, each type almost has a bit of a personality, even though they're actually a full series of each type, and so each time you see one, it's a different Buzz Bomb or a different Krabby or whatever, but, like, each type has its own personality, almost.
Right.
But, Sonic and Bunny beat Big Burrow Bot together, which means that just by letting Bunny engage in physical combat with a thing, that's like already more with her strength that this comic has done than SatAM ever did.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, again, I'm not blaming SatAM for that. It got canceled long before they meant it to, but it is
SatAM got screwed over by getting canceled at the end of the day.
And our final image of the issue is this fit-up page called Robotnik's Rules.
I like one of his rules is no healthy food.
Yeah, you can't eat asparagus in here, motherfucker.
It's fine, I'll deep fry my asparagus. Boom, no longer healthy.
That does not sound like it would taste good.
I mean, deep fry anything, it'll probably be good.
Go to a state fair and have nightmares afterward, I guess.
I've been to a state fair and had toilet nightmares.
That is enough information. Let's move on to issue 4.
Hey, wait. So this page, there's a note here, which is that Robotnik's rules are signed IR, which means this is the first instance in the comics where his first name of Ivo is referred to, I think.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But, yeah. Moving on to issue 4 here with the world's most ironic cover, the all-new, all different, grittier, darker Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh boy.
Knowing where things go for this franchise, it makes it so funny to see this in retrospect as a joke.
What I want to know about this cover is I want this backstory of how Robotnik managed to conquer the corner box.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even see that.
So this is a good time to bring up. Yeah. I love that the comics start doing these corner box gags. It goes on for a while.
Oh yeah, they continue for a long time. Well into the adventure era, at least. So yeah, our first story for this issue is called The Lizard of Odd. During a routine capture, Robotnik accidentally roboticizes a salamander at an enormous scale. Now out of his creator's control, the Universe Salamander, which is just a wonderfully low-effort name, becomes Sonic's responsibility.
Because,
Yeah, so I mean, I know it's a gag, but it's still strange. Although I guess it adds to the Swapbot's personalities a little bit. They capture this little salamander in this giant armored truck, right? So there's two ways you can see this. One, the less humorous way, is that they're robots. They're programmed very strictly, and so they're like, oh, it's a specimen of unusual size. We must use the giant armored vehicle to transport it. Or you can think that the Swapbots have a bit of personality themselves as well, and they have a sense of humor. They're playing a joke, but Robotnik has no humor when people trick him.
Yeah, I think it's just that this was the only shipping container we had, and this was the only thing we could find.
I hadn't thought about that. That works too.
What I will say is that, he roboticizes this thing, but he sets the size to way too big, I guess. I feel like every version of Robotnik we've seen, historically bad at planning as they are, if they had the option to just make gigantic kaiju mechs extremely easily, they would just do that all the time.
Oh, you're goddamn right they would.
Oh... We're going to get to another point a little later that's even more glaring than that, in my opinion. You can somewhat justify this because it seems there's a bit of the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog version of Badniks in this continuity where they will betray Robotnik if they can. And so we can't control the super large ones.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I suppose he, out of self-preservation, that makes sense.
Right.
And
But yeah, it is a little out of the blue, but it's a cartoony era, so whatever.
yeah, I'll say this. There's also this hilarious moment that I don't know if they meant for it to be as ironic or like as funny as it is, because Sonic, lifts up the thing of the Great Oak Slide and immediately sees Robotnik flying by getting chased, which means that Robotnik just flew by the entrance to Knothole, which he's been looking for years and didn't even notice.
Yeah, no, it is funny. I agree. Which I feel like this contrasts with the way Eggman often is. I feel like Eggman wouldn't back down this quickly, but this version of Robotnik obviously does. Very cowardly.
And Sonic just instantly gets eaten by this thing. He takes one attack and it just munched.
Yep, Sonic's just dead now.
Also, I know it's probably a joke, but why does Universe Salamander have bones?
Well, I think it's more inconsistencies with roboticization.
Yeah, because if you were gonna make the case that roboticization is like a layer of metal and does not roboticize you from the outside in, then it would make sense. But that's definitely not the case.
I still say with detaching and reattaching limbs, that doesn't work. That's the simple reason.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and there's also this weird bit where, okay, so Sonic spins around really fast inside Universe Salamander's mouth to make him spit Sonic up, which I don't understand how that's supposed to make him queasy, because if I had something in my mouth, I admit that I don't eat a lot of living creatures.
I'm glad to hear that.
But if I had something in my mouth that could move somehow and it spun around on my tongue very quickly, that wouldn't make me throw up.
Well, you're not speaking from experience, so how do you know? I don't know how it works exactly. I mean, it's supposedly stirred up, like built up pressure or something. I don't know how that works.
Well, if he was in his stomach and he did that, then it would make perfect sense. They say those of you with weak stomachs might want to ignore the next panel, which implies that there's going to be like a graphic scene of him throwing up, but it's literally just a sound effect and then Sonic is lying on the ground.
I think the implication is that they didn't include the panel.
In any case, we get to the main interesting thing about this story, which is that Sonic is going into a special stage.
So I like how Sonic just casually collected all 7 Chaos Emeralds off panel.
And he also has 50 rings, which is, well, that's a lot of friggin' rings in, a series where they were supposedly... They're selectively limited.
Why don't you just use
rings last time? But
why don't you just use the rings to fight Universe Salamander instead of go to the special zone?
Well, and this is the other thing that doesn't make sense, because if Sonic has all 7 emeralds, which he says all 7 emeralds, which there's way more than 7 in this series, but whatever.
Not yet, though.
But if he has 7 emeralds and 50 rings, what is he going to the special stage for? Apparently the special stage is what makes Sonic super in this series.
Right.
So that's not the first thing that Sonic states about Super Sonic. Matter of fact, as if that is established lore, which is most definitely is not. The other thing is that he later declares, yes, one of my abilities as Super Sonic is I can jump through enemies. Huh? Just phase right through.
He has the power of being a ghost.
Oh,
I don't know what to make of this. I think all they do is that Super Sonic is powerful and that you need to do some of these things, but they didn't know in what order or what mattered.
Yeah, and then he teleports back to Knothole.
I think he just goes there fast.
He just goes super quickly, yeah.
No, but it's like they don't actually show Sonic moving there. He's just suddenly there.
Yeah, and he apparently, and I quote, borrows the reduce/enlarge component of the roboticizer that they smashed up when they saved Bunny, which has a little bit of continuity, I guess. But here's the thing: if they just had that on hand,
Okay, so I have 4 questions. 1, Robotnik apparently has invented a shrink ray, yet has not used it yet. 2, why is it in the mobile roboticizer?
Because it's part of roboticization. I think that's why the Universe Salamander got to be so big.
So I guess he would want to scale it up to a more reasonable size, would I guess be the reason that he'd have that, because it would not be any use roboticized as teeny tiny.
Okay, I guess that somewhat answers the 2 questions. 3, though, why didn't Robotnik use this against Universal Salamander himself?
Yeah, big Robotnik.
Yeah, I don't think that was quite the
No, I meant he does what Sonic did.
right. I do like the idea of Robotnik.
Although, yes, Supreme High Robotnik.
Yes, the Supreme High Robotnik.
Yeah, because if he... Oh, I see what you're saying, is that he can just shrink ray it back down to reasonable size, but instead he just runs away.
Exactly.
Right.
Fourth question. If this was Sonic's plan, he did not have to become super to do this. Why did he
No, he
become
didn't.
super?
No, that is true.
He does not use the strength of Supersonic to fight this thing at all.
He just became. I think he just became Supersonic for just the stupid speed. But at the beginning of this issue, he proves he can move faster than the speed of light because he moves faster than the camera can send electrons to the monitor, showing where he is.
Yeah, so this is just a bizarre element.
My big thing is they put Supersonic in this comic for marketing reasons. That's what I'm thinking, right? Why would they not put him on the cover?
True.
That's a good point. Yeah, that would have been a good idea.
My best guess is maybe the covers are like those inventory stories and they just kind of used whatever they felt like for a given issue at this point.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean the covers are often kind of unrelated.
Maybe that's the deal with some of the pinup art, is that it's just cover ideas that they didn't end up using.
Maybe.
Makes about as much sense as anything.
Makes about as much sense as these 2 gag pages at the end that feature Antoine trying to put together a vanity counter and failing because, I don't know, I guess they bought it from IKEA.
I guess IKEA in this universe doesn't provide instructions.
Mm-hmm.
No, they do have instructions. He's just reading them poorly because it's, they're in Swedish. I don't know.
They're in English and he can only read French.
Yeah. And then the second gag page is friggin' Alan Cal again!
Oh god, that's right.
Oh yeah.
Which means that they must have drawn this, if we're working off the assumption that anybody sent in messages asking to see them again, which I still do not believe, that would mean that they'd have to have drawn this immediately after, because this is literally... Oh no, you know what? This is 2 issues after, not 1. You're right. I still doubt that anybody was really excited to see them.
We didn't even say anything. You just said your own brain was right.
My point was that I was wrong. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's true.
Moving on to the other between story things. I really like, actually, the Robotnik birthday card. Because Robotnik being like, I will turn you into a mindless slave. By the way, happy birthday. Is hilarious and also seems completely in character for this Robotnik, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, it says happy bot day, so maybe it's not even a birthday. It's just the day you get roboticized.
Well, you're right. Even better then.
Now I know. Now I have a good birthday card to give my grandmother.
Ooh. Wait, why is your grandmother turning into a robot?
Too much information, Devin. Don't worry.
All right. The rest of these are we get some epic references because we get Dr. Doom and Lex Luthor trying out to be Sonic villains.
Yeah,
and the Green Goblin.
When you randomly see not just references but just actual characters from other things, it's very jarring to me.
It makes no sense.
Do either of you recognize the other 2 guys on the bench there? I don't know who those are.
Not really.
I mean, one of them just looks like an old man. The other looks like he could be from something. He's a little bit generic.
Sure, they're both from something, because, the first 3 are from comics.
Yeah. Green Goblin having a bad day.
Yeah.
I was going to say bad hair day, but he doesn't have hair. But we do have a bad hair day in the other one, which is... It establishes
at least.
It establishes the important fact that Bunny's dream in life is to be Sally's hairdresser.
That was mentioned in her debut, that she wanted to be a hairdresser.
Well, she's not doing a very good job because they, for some reason, think that a good way to do Sally's hair is to electrocute her.
Yeah, I don't know how that works either.
Well, and it looks like shit. I think that they wrote... Because they bring this up a number of times. I think that they wrote this in because they wanted a reason for Bunny and Sally to, hang out and be friends. But these writers strike me as people that don't have a good grasp of how to write women being friends with each other. And so this was the best they could come up with.
Yeah, just have them, just have hair,
Guess so.
Yeah, and our final story not our final issue, but our final story for this issue is Tails' Little Tale, Did I even write a summary for this? Yes, I did. While Sonic is busy napping, Tails takes it upon himself to fight the forces of Robotropolis alone, but finds himself in too deep before long.
Man, they should have just written this as Tails being a Chad.
Well, he actually is surprisingly competent for most
He
of it.
is, but
When the Orbinaut and Buzz Bomber go after him, and he's like, "What would Sonic do?" I was totally expecting him to be like, "Help me!" And then Sonic jumps in and helps him. But no, then he's like, "Oh, I know what Sonic would do," and he trashes both of them. It's awesome.
that is pretty good.
Listen, nothing they do can ever excuse the fact that this title is wrong. It shouldn't be Tails' Little Tail. It should be Tails' Little Tail, because it's the possessive form of a proper name.
That is true.
You
Very
guys,
wrong.
God hates grammar, you know? I can't take it anymore.
He says.
Yeah, him too.
So I got a little went a little ahead, but when Tails is like, "All right, I gotta look out for Robotnik and stuff," and then Robotnik is right behind him, throwing a party, which I love because in universe, Robotnik couldn't have been gone for more than like a few hours, but he still has this grand celebration, like grand reopening. I'm back. It's amazing.
I like the idea of him, like, throwing, like, a company picnic for all his robots and, like, doing the performative CEO routine of, like, explaining why, because I'm doing this, I don't have to pay you more, even though he doesn't pay them at all.
It's wonderful because Robotnik has this impression that like he wants to be like a combination of like a corrupt politician, corrupt businessman, just corrupt everything, even though they're like those roles don't make any actual sense given that he's just taken over, but he plays them anyway. It's hilarious.
He loves the aesthetics of villainy.
Yeah.
Hashtag aesthetic.
Yeah, but yeah, Tails gets to do some cool things in this. Certainly faster than in Sat AM, where it took most of the show. Although I'll
That's
say,
true.
obviously Sat AM is better written than this. But I do like the line, "I'm the Michael Jordan of freedom fighters." How do you even know who that is, Tails? We don't need to explain it. It's more epic references that make no canonical sense. But
Mhm.
I know, but it's hard to not want to explain it.
well, because there's so much of it in these.
Yeah, exactly.
We've seen like 5 in a few pages. I will say, Tails getting caught by the SWAT bots. I like that the way that he gets caught is completely incidental, where they're just like practicing shadow puppets. Like they're just slacking off from work, and he's just like, "Oops."
Only a mishap like that could stop him.
Yeah,
He's too powerful.
Yep.
Yeah, but Sonic's here to the rescue, same as usual, and I like the SWAT bots hitting their self-destruct buttons and being like, "Yep, we're gonna just blow ourselves up."
And it's completely unnecessary, but for some reason their heads pop off too.
Which is weird because you can see in one panel that their voices are coming from both their bodies and their heads at the same time.
You gotta get that stereo sound.
Yeah.
Surround sound. Dolby 5.1.
Robotnik has that quality.
Robotnik would totally be an audiophile.
No, but he hates music, so he's using
No,
like
specifically for,
5.1
like,
surround
speech.
sound to listen to like metal scraping noises.
That
Exactly.
is exactly what I was picturing.
That is exactly what he would do.
But yeah, Tails learns an important lesson about patience and planning, and then the issue's over.
Yep.
Oh, he does run into a hole and die, though. That's the end.
It's the implication anyway.
So, Sonic number 5 has a new writer, actually, for Olympic Trials and Errors. That's our story for the first part of the issue. We have a new writer in the form of Angelo, I think his last name is pronounced De Cesare?
That sounds right.
Yeah, well, either way, it's he's not demonstrably different from Gallagher right now.
Not
I know that people kind of
particularly.
like this guy. Yeah.
It's a new writer, but it's not really a new story. I
Right.
was surprised after seeing all these different pieces of Sonic media how widely used, like, the Robotnik sets up a sports competition and Sonic does it, and it's obviously it's rigged. Plotline is used.
Yeah, because we had it in Adventures, we had it in that manga, didn't we have sort of a version of it in Underground?
Well, there was a race, so that counts.
There was a race in Sat AM.
Yep.
Well, there was also a race in Adventures of Sonic that was a different episode.
Right. Yeah. Well,
And actually,
Adventures
there were
did that
2
multiple
sports episodes
times.
of Sat AM.
Yeah.
There was also the one with the coach robot.
Adventures, but yeah,
What did I say?
Sat AM.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's like I don't even need to read the summary because other than Sonic being incapacitated and Sally, Antoine, and Rotor having to pick up his slack at the games, and Tails, discovering how the games are rigged. Like, that's all you really get that's different from the formula we've seen 3 times now.
Yep. I will say it's funny that the comics have a better excuse than Sonic Labyrinth for switching out Sonic's shoes. It's not very good, but it's still more sense.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, in Labyrinth, it was literally just Robotnik snuck into his house and swapped, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
Although this one revolves around Sonic swimming, so...
Yeah, they say that, although he's actually portrayed as kind of just like relaxing on the water, which makes a bit more sense.
Yeah,
considering at this point he isn't shown to be deathly afraid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this, I think we do get a moment of Antoine finally doing something wrong despite not being punished for it, where he says, "Oh, we can't bring Tails. He's not good at athletics," which is like, if you can manipulate the muscles in your ass fast enough to float off the ground, you are an athletic person.
Yeah.
Well, nobody's perfect, I suppose.
Yeah. But it's, it goes like you suppose. Sonic gets the slowdown sneakers, or they're not slowdown, they're, energy drainers or whatever. And everybody else has to pick up the slack, but nobody is as good as Sonic or most robots. And they basically have to just screw around, essentially, by the last point, just to get Sonic his shoes back and to win the race.
Win the race.
Just win the race.
Which I guess was the most important event.
Yeah, so the implication is that the Freedom Fighters would have won by the rules that Robotnik set, which I
Right.
guess he was like so overconfident that he was like, "Oh, you just win one of my events," even though he was totally lying. But he even has like a scoreboard, which, like, why is there a score if they just need to win one event?
Well, and it's also like, what is the nature of this competition? Who cares? Sonic destroys the robot machine, which makes sense, but it's like, why did you need to win before they did that?
Well, it's just the classic plot. I mean, Sonic admits, because they're like, it's obviously a trick, Sonic. And Sonic's like, yeah, but if there's a chance, yeah, like a not 0.00001% something chance.
And that seems to be Sonic's go-to opinion on most of the time when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just like, there's a chance that I'm not gonna, get captured. Well, fuck it, I'm gonna go for it.
Well, in any case, we do get one thing that I like, which is that Antoine does scrape the win for them.
That is true. He does.
He gets a minor moment of glory.
Chad Twan.
Well, and that's the thing that I seem to remember about De Cesare, is that he does like Antoine in his writing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Antoine is really just shit on too much, even so far.
I think it'll get better, I may need to refresh my memory.
We'll have his day eventually. It may not be for a while, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so... We got exactly one gag page this issue, which hopefully there's going to be less of them. It's just Sonic exercise routine, nothing that funny.
Yeah.
And then our second story of the issue is Chomp on This Chump, which is another De Cesare. Rotor orders an ant farm from a magazine. However, he instead received a super-powered termite from Robotnik.
So, Rotor, he's a smart dude, right?
Yeah.
Why is he so foolish as to think he could order something from some company in a world that's been taken over by Robotnik? That doesn't add up.
Also, wouldn't this imply that Robotnik knows where Knothole is?
Exactly.
That was my next remark. I'm surprised how often in this comic he could have easily found it, actually.
Yeah, maybe he just has a robot that handles shipping stuff out.
But the robot needs to know where that is, if he can just check the robot.
Nah, because before he was going to tell him, he, it tripped and knocked over Robotnik's favorite thing, and Robotnik destroyed it. The robot.
Fair enough.
I guess.
The begrudging, I guess. That was good. I like that.
It doesn't fit at all, but it's obvious that, more and more, this is very Adventures-esque.
Yeah.
It shows that, I was saying back in Sat AM that they didn't quite know what to do with Rotor a lot of the time, and this is more evidence of that, because this doesn't really have anything to do with his alleged tech literacy.
Well, in Sat AM, at least, it really felt like the writers didn't know what to do with him, so they just started giving Sally more of the tech literacy stuff.
And she doesn't have that here. Mostly Sally is just designed to be like the team mom, I guess.
She really is the mom, but she's not a very good mom.
It's the closest reference the writers had.
No, I know.
Hey, you guys notice how we got Bunny last issue, but she's not in this one at all?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Shame. I want to see more because I like her.
Maybe that's her fitting into her sad Arrow role of not being utilized well.
Oof.
Although, you know, again, it's entirely possible that we're not seeing these in production order, but not that it matters much.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem to matter that much, but it does make me curious to see if someone has tried to figure out like production order.
It'd be so on brand relative to the Sonic shows.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're not even talking about the story because it's like, what do you expect? You know, they get a termite thing, it turns out to be a robot, it grows bigger as it eats, and it becomes a problem, and then they just send the problem away.
Pretty much.
Yep.
That's a lot of these early comics. Something happens that is a problem, and then they do something that just kind of goes away.
Yeah.
This isn't exactly an uncommon thing for media.
Right.
But the only thing I noticed beyond all that is just that in one frame the termite robot is like gigantic, and another one it's like about the same size as him, so the size isn't consistent completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a wet fart to end our first proper Archie episode on.
Kind of.
I mean, maybe we can go for an even wetter fart by talking about the final gag page, which is about Sonic eating fake fruit.
You know, that's kind of funny because it just shows that Sonic has a habit of going fast and not thinking about things.
Going fast and eating wax.
Yeah. Live fast, eat wax.
But yeah, this is really setting sort of the status quo for the early issues, and I'm scrolling through my notes here because I want to see when things start to change. Oh god. I think it's gonna be a little bit.
That sounds right off the top of my head, remembering how these things go about.
Well, next time we are going to be doing issues 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and after that is number 11, and we're not doing that next week, but that does have a big paradigm shift for the series, so I guess we'll say week after next is when it starts to change.
Yeah, it has a certain someone in it.
Yeah.
But stick around for next time anyway. It'll be fun, I assure you.
No,
Yeah.
Don't watch it. Make it the least viewed podcast we've ever done.
No,
Oh, no.
don't. Or Devin, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
I don't thank you all for watching, and if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you shouldn't send them to @deepdivezone on Twitter or deepdivezonepod@gmail.com. And I hope you don't have a nice night, and I hope we don't see you next week.
It's okay, chat.
Get
You
outta
can
here.
you can do all of that to me instead.
You're calling them chat?
I don't know why I called them chat.
If you find this offensive, good.
Goodbye, losers. Ah!